Hi, everybody. So this is going to be my 5th chat in my yoga history and philosophy chat that I'm doing. So I'm going to try to keep this as close to 5 minutes as I can. In my last chat, I talked about meditation and from a yoga Vedanta perspective, what it is. It's a state of being, not necessarily something that you do. So today I kind of want to talk a little bit about the why meditate. Now you can go and Google all of the articles, millions, hundreds, thousands, however many articles about why meditation is good for you and what it does to your brain and why it's good for you. So I'm going to leave you on your own to do that. What I want to talk about today, I guess, kind of is like the 8th limb of yoga, which again, in the Indian Yoga Vedanta philosophy umbrella is called Samadhi, but that's just a word. Every culture in all of time has their own words for what happens in meditation. So I'm actually going to lean on the words of Alan Watts, and I am going to read a little bit. I'm going to keep this close to 5 minutes though, because I think it's important to share this experience because it's very common. So Watts says, "The most impressive fact in man's spiritual, intellectual, and poetic experience has always been for me the universal prevalence of those astonishing moments of insight, which Richard Buck called cosmic consciousness. There is no really satisfactory name for this type of experience. To call it mystical is to confuse it with visions of another world or of gods and angels. To call it spiritual or metaphysical is to suggest that it is not extremely concrete and physical, while the term cosmic consciousness itself has the unpoetic flavor of occultist jargon. But from all historical times and cultures, we have reports of this same unmistakable sensation emerging, as a rule quite suddenly and unexpectedly and from no clearly understood cause. To the individual thus enlightened, it appears as a vivid and overwhelming certainty that the universe, precisely as it is in this moment, as a whole and in every one of its parts, is so completely right as to need no explanation or justification beyond what simply is. Existence not only ceases to be a problem, the mind is so wonderstruck at the self-evident and self-sufficient fitness of things as they are, including what would ordinarily be thought of as the worst, that it cannot find any word strong enough to express the perfection and beauty of the experience." He goes on to say, "The central core of the experience seems to be the conviction or insight that the immediate now, whatever its nature, is the goal and fulfillment of all living. Surrounding and flowing from this insight is an emotional ecstasy, a sense of intense relief, freedom, and lightness, and often of almost unbearable love for the world, which is, however, secondary. Often, the pleasure of the experience is confused with the experience and the insight lost in the ecstasy, so that in trying to retain the secondary effects of the experience, the individual misses its point, that the immediate now is complete even when it's not ecstatic. For ecstasy is a necessarily impermanent contrast in the constant fluctuation of our feelings. But insight, when clear enough, persists. Having once understood a particular skill, the facility tends to remain. The terms in which a man, this is important, the terms in which a man interprets this experience are naturally drawn from the religious and philosophical ideas of his culture, and their differences often conceal its basic identity. As water seeks the course of least resistance, so the emotions clothe themselves in the symbols that lie most readily to hand, and the association is so swift and automatic that the symbol may appear to be the very heart of the experience. Clarity, the disappearance of problems, suggests light, and in moments of such acute clarity, there may be the physical sensation of light penetrating everything. To a theist, this will naturally seem to be a glimpse of the presence of God. He goes on to give examples about how it could be the prevalence of God to a theist, but how to a Buddhist, it will just as naturally call to mind the doctrine of reality as the ungraspable infinite void called sunyata. He says, as one and the same pain may be described either as a hot pang or a cold sting, so the descriptions of this experience may take forms that seem to be completely opposed. He says, rarely is the experience described without metaphors that might be misleading if taken literally. But in reading Bernard Benson's Sketch for a Self-Portrait, I came across a passage which is one of the simplest and cleanest accounts of it I have ever seen. It says, it was a morning in early summer. A silver haze shimmered and trembled over the lime trees. The air was laden with their fragrance. The temperature was like a caress. I need not recall, that I climbed up a tree stump and felt suddenly immersed in itness. I did not call it by that name. I had no need for words. It and I were one. And just to sum up with Watt's words to finish this reading portion of this talk out, Watt says, just it. As when we use the word to denote the superlative or the exact point or intense reality or what we were always looking for. Not the neuter sense of the mere object, but something still more alive and far wider than the personal, and for which we use this simplest of words because we have no other word for it. It is especially difficult to find the right means of expression for this experience in the cultural context of Christianity, for one. For while this enlightenment comes just as much to Christians as it does to anyone else, the Christian mystic has always been in danger of conflict with the defenders of orthodoxy. So I'm just going to leave it there for now. And I'm going to, I'm going to share one more passage. And on that note about Christianity, it's not bashing Christianity. And I'm adding that any religion that has, too much emphasis on language and strict rules and things like that are going to kind of miss the point and kind of create more harm. Not just Christianity, but it's a good example here in our Western world. So just to end this out, I'm going to say, he says, like falling in love, it has minimal connection with any particular cultural background or economic position. It descends upon the rich and the poor, the moral and the immoral, the happy and the miserable without distinction. It carries with it the overwhelming conviction that the world is in every respect a miracle of glory. And though this might logically exclude the necessity to share the vision with others and awaken them from their nightmare, the usual reaction is a sense not of duty, but of sheer delight in communicating the experience by word or deed. So I just wanted to end on that note. I know this is going way longer than 5 minutes, but I think this is important. This is an important talk. If you've stuck with me this long, thank you. So that last point that he's saying, and this is why I think so many yoga teachers come across as so passionate about wanting to share yoga, not of duty, but of sheer delight in communicating the experience by word or deed. So I don't know if reading is a good way for you to connect with what I'm saying, but I just think that it's really important to point out that these experiences that people have in deep meditation of seeing a bright light or feeling totally connected with nature or everyone and everything they're very, very common throughout all of time, throughout all cultures. And so I do think that it is worthwhile to attempt to talk about them more. I've had friends share with me that they've had experiences like this and then maybe been called crazy or told not to share those experiences with anybody. But I mean, this is it. This is what it is. And I do kind of make these videos as like, if I could tell my younger self something as I started out on this spiritual journey. If I could tell my younger self things, it would be what I'm making these talks and videos about. So I'm curious if anyone wants to ever share with me that they've had an experience like this in meditation, of feeling connected to God. Really don't like using that word just because of all the cultural context that comes behind it. I've always had a problem, or I've always had an uncomfortability with language because it can be so divisive. So when I found this book, I was very happy. I've been suggested to read and listen to Alan Watts by my mentors tons, and this is the first time I've ever read him. So just with him saying that it's a very common and universal experiences that people have, it's impossible to put words to it, but it's absolutely valid. I think part of my mission, I'm finding, is to kind of try to demystify these things. Because on the one hand, they're incredibly practical and real. And on the other hand, they are incredibly magical, mystical, spiritual. But like, just people have had them throughout all of time. And I also just want to be sure that when I say this is it, that might seem negative. Like if you're suffering, like really, really suffering, that's not to say that like, this is it. Just accept your suffering and you're never going to heal. You're never going to feel better. You're never going to not have anxiety or depression or whatever it is that you have. It's not saying that at all. There's tons of modalities that can help you to function and be happy and better in your days. But if I could tell my younger self something, it would be to meditate every day. I'm doing 20 minutes right now, seems pretty sufficient. But to meditate every day, but however, also don't get so distracted by your healing spiritual journey that you miss your life. Because this is it. And what matters, and everybody's different, but what I'm finding for myself is what matters is love above all else, and the people in your life. So do your practices, do your healing, but don't forget to be present with what actually is happening right in front of you right now as you watch this video. This is it, so don't miss it. I'm sure there was a lot more that I wanted to say, and I was actually pretty nervous to make this video today because it kind of feels like, it feels big to me. So I guess I'll just wrap up by saying that, just to clarify again, that in these videos, in my yoga classes, and the meditations that I lead, I am utilizing the tools of Yoga Vedanta from India. In so many ways, yoga, and almost even more so Buddhism, seem to me like the least dogmatic systems for finding clarity. And I think that's why a lot of people may be drawn to them. Spiritual but not religious. SBNR. Spiritual but not religious is a common term from another book that I've read that's often used. So I think a lot of what is missing in this world is the spiritual component of like body, mind, and spirit healing, or existence, if you don't like the word healing. But I think that because of language, because of division, because of colonialism, because of orthodoxy, people don't want to talk about religion, philosophy, spirituality, because they don't want to cause harm and they don't want to upset people. And it's very personal. I do also understand that it's very personal. So I am in no way disregarding anybody's religions or philosophies. I just want to point out, as Vivekananda did at the Parliament of World Religions, as the first Indian guru who came over to America, that it's all about unity. So I hope that this was useful to you. I love you, and don't forget to be present. Have a magical day, friends.